The rope hissed against the timber as the sheriff tugged it higher. She stood beneath it, wrists raw, eyes steady, the morning sun catching the lines of her face like it was trying to etch fear into her. She didn't flinch. The sheriff's hand hovered over the coil, fingers twitching. "Pull it higher," he barked. A man near the gallows murmured, "She can't breathe," but the sheriff's glare sliced through him. "That's the point." The crowd shifted, uneasy, some heads ducking. Children sobbed quietly. He snapped at them, "Take that boy home." The woman's lips pressed tight. Not a plea, not a tear, just a calm that made the sheriff's fingers curl around the rope tighter. The deputy cleared his throat. "Any last words?" The sheriff's voice was sharp, the kind that demanded the world bend to it. Silence stretched. Then, almost soft, almost whispered, she spoke. "You're scared." Heads jerked. The sheriff blinked, trying to weigh the words. "Of you?" he asked, voice cracking with disbelief. "You don't hang people you ain't afraid of," she said. The crowd's murmur rose, like wind across dry leaves. A rancher muttered, "This ain't right." The sheriff's hand tightened on the rope. "Anyone who objects can join her." No one moved. Even the men who usually talked big held back. The rope creaked under the tension. Bootsteps scraped across the dirt behind the crowd. Slow. Heavy. Intentional. No one turned. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. He signaled the deputy to finish the job. "Do it." The deputy's hands shook. He pulled on the lever. The rope moved, but only for a fraction before a sharp, commanding voice cut through the tension. "Stop." Heads snapped. Dust kicked up from boots crossing the dirt. The crowd parted like water. A cowboy stepped forward. Hat tipped low, dust clinging to his boots, sleeves smeared with dried blood. His gaze fixed on the sheriff. "You best have a reason," the sheriff said, voice tight, trembling with the echo of authority. The cowboy's lips pressed together for a moment, then he spoke, one sentence, clean, undeniable. And just like that, the sheriff's control wavered. "She's not guilty," he said. The rope slackened. The crowd's murmur doubled. The sheriff's jaw flexed, rage and doubt colliding in his chest. "You have no right," he spat, but the cowboy didn't back down. "I saw the evidence myself," he said. "You're hanging the wrong woman." The woman blinked slowly. Her wrists stung, but she straightened. "Finally someone sees it," she said, voice low. Whispers ran through the crowd. "Evidence?" "What evidence?" someone called. "The brother's alive," the cowboy said. Gasps. Some people stepped back. The sheriff's eyes darted around the faces, trying to rally obedience. "He lies," he shouted. "I am the law here." "Law?" she asked, voice cutting, loud enough for the crowd to hear. "Or fear?" A pause. The tension held like a drawn knife. The cowboy didn't flinch. "Fear's not justice," he said. The sheriff's face flushed. "You're trying to turn them against me," he accused. She met his eyes. "I've done nothing but tell the truth." He raised a fist, trembling. The crowd flinched. "Do it then," she said softly. "Hang me if you're brave." Silence spread. Not the quiet of acceptance, but the quiet of disbelief. Children pressed their faces against their mothers' skirts. A few of the older men exchanged nervous glances. The deputy took a step back, uncertainty in every movement. The rope twisted lazily. The sheriff's boots scraped the platform. "You'll burn for this," he muttered, venom low and dangerous. "You've already tried," she said, chin high. Her words carried, they cut through the unease, slicing through the sheriff's certainty. The cowboy's eyes never left the sheriff. "You killed the wrong man last year," he said. The sheriff's fingers clenched the rope until knuckles turned white. "Silence," he growled. The woman smiled faintly, a flash of defiance. "You've hung enough already." A farm wife whispered from the crowd, "And yet we listen." Another nodded. The sheriff's hand shook as he tried to lift the rope again. "Enough of this talk," he spat. "Move them back." But the crowd didn't budge. The tension was a living thing, pressing down on the gallows like wet clay. The rope loosened, small but undeniable. The woman's toes brushed the wooden platform. She straightened fully, finally grounded. The sheriff's eyes flicked to the cowboy. He was calm, steady, and the power had shifted before anyone realized. "Her name is clear," the cowboy said, voice carrying across the dirt lot. "The record is wrong." He looked directly at the sheriff. "You know it." The sheriff's lips parted, but no words came. The crowd leaned in. Even the deputies seemed to hold their breath. The woman didn't move. She only waited. "Do it if you can," she whispered, not to the sheriff, but to the world. And in that moment, the gallows felt smaller. The rope less certain. The sheriff's authority, fragile and cracking, held only by the memory of fear he had long cultivated. The cowboy's one sentence, clear and unyielding, had done what no one expected. The rope slackened fully. The sheriff's face went pale as he realized the day would not end as he planned. Silence, heavy and palpable, hung over the crowd. Dust settled. The wind paused. Somewhere in the back, a child's breath shivered. The woman's eyes softened. Not in relief, not in fear, but in recognition that the world had shifted, even if only slightly. The cowboy stepped back, tipping his hat slightly, letting the sheriff see that he would not bend, would not retreat, would not let fear dictate justice today. And the sheriff, once untouchable, felt it, the first crack in a lifetime of control. The rope swung lightly, forgotten. Dust settled around the gallows as the crowd's murmur became a hum of suspicion and curiosity. The cowboy's voice cut through it again, low but firm. "Her name ain't on that grave." Heads jerked. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. "What grave?" he demanded. "The one you said she dug." "North well. Last spring." Murmurs rippled through the crowd like dry wind over cracked earth. The woman lifted her chin. For the first time, her eyes held more than defiance, they held recognition, relief. "Finally," she said softly. "Finally someone speaks truth." The cowboy stepped closer. "You claim she poisoned your brother. Buried him by the north well." The sheriff's face darkened, lips pressed tight. "That's fact," he spat. "Fact?" the cowboy asked, calm, deliberate. "Then why's the coffin empty?" A gasp ran through the crowd. The deputy stammered behind the sheriff, that ain't true." The sheriff's hand twitched toward his holster. The cowboy shook his head slowly. "I opened it myself." Silence, thick and suffocating, blanketed the assembly. The woman's hands unclenched. "Why?" she whispered, voice almost lost in the tension. He looked at her steadily, not answering. "Why now?" she pressed. Still no reply. The sheriff's jaw twitched. "You have no authority," he barked. "Didn't need it," the cowboy said. A rustle went through the crowd. The farmer who had whispered before spoke again. "You're saying he's alive?" He nodded, slow, deliberate. 3 counties south. I saw him with my own eyes." Gasps, whispers, sudden movements. The sheriff's face flushed red with rage. "You're lying." "You'd ruin the town's order for a lie," he demanded. The woman shook her head, stepping forward, wrist still marked from the rope. "No. Not lying. Truth. Finally uncovered." A ranch wife whispered to her neighbor, voice trembling. "All these years, and we followed him blindly?" Another nodded. "Blind fear, not justice," the farmer muttered. The sheriff's hand quivered on the rope's post. "Enough of this," he barked. "I am law here." "You are nothing." "Nothing," she said, voice sharp. "Nothing?" "I held this land when everyone else wanted to take it from widows. I spoke when everyone else stayed silent." "And you call me nothing?" The cowboy moved slightly, letting her words land. "We've been wronged," he said. The law here bends to fear, not truth. Fear keeps people in line, the sheriff snapped. No, the woman said. Fear keeps people silent. Truth sets them free. And you've buried it for decades. A man near the front muttered, decades, graves we never knew about. The crowd stirred uneasily. The sheriff's face fell. These are accusations, he hissed. Accusations, the woman repeated softly, but with weight. And yet you've hung men, taken women, burned barns, blamed the wrong souls. Her gaze swung toward the cowboy. How many graves did you see yourself? He looked around briefly. Enough to know you're wrong, he said. Your brother wasn't poisoned. He wasn't dead. He was digging. Digging in the north well. Searching for women you buried in secret. And now we see it. A ripple of whispers moved through the crowd. Children clutched skirts. The sheriff's hand shook at his side. You are defaming my family, he said, voice cracking. The woman's eyes were unyielding. No. I am naming it. You buried truth in dirt, in silence, in fear. Now the town sees it too. The cowboy nodded toward her. It's not just her voice anymore. She dug nothing, the sheriff shouted, desperate. She corrupted, the woman interrupted, voice steady. I corrupted nothing. I survived. I named it. You try to erase memory, but memory has teeth. The sheriff's fists clenched. I am sheriff. I enforce law. You, the cowboy, stepped between them. And law isn't killing truth, he said quietly. It never was. The crowd leaned in. The tension was unbearable, like standing on a precipice. The woman's eyes scanned the faces around her. Who will follow lies again, she asked. No one answered. Some heads dipped. Silence hung thick, heavier than the rope ever could. You killed her husband last year, someone from the crowd finally whispered. A few nodded. And mine, another voice muttered. And mine, said a third. The sheriff's face drained of color. Silence, he whispered, trying to regain authority. No, the woman said, voice rising just enough. We will name what was buried. We will see the north well. We will remember. The wind shifted, faint and heavy. The rope swayed gently in the breeze. The cowboy's eyes never left the sheriff's. You lose control now, he said. The sheriff turned, shaking. I am law. I am, he trailed off. No words followed. The woman's gaze softened, almost tender, though her stance remained firm. Your lies won't stand any longer, she said. And this town will not hang me today. The crowd began moving forward, some hesitant, some angry at decades of silence, some just following instinct. The sheriff staggered, trying to maintain control, but the rope, the gallows, the authority, all felt suddenly fragile. The cowboy tipped his hat toward her. Truth has a way of rising, he said, stepping back. She nodded once. The rope no longer threatened her. The sheriff finally realized the day would end differently. The past, the graves, the missing bodies, all of it was surfacing. The sheriff stood on the gallows platform, hands gripping nothing now, eyes darting between the woman and the cowboy. His badge gleamed in the morning light, almost mocking him, a symbol he thought untouchable. You think this is easy? He shouted, voice trembling. You think I enjoy this? The woman rubbed her wrists, scarred from the rope, and lifted her chin. You enjoy fear, she said quietly, but everyone heard. The crowd shifted, uneasy, like leaves in a sudden wind. The cowboy's eyes were calm, steady, unflinching. Order ain't the same as truth, he said. The sheriff's fists trembled. You speak as if you know justice. She's seen it, the cowboy continued. All of it. Seen what? The sheriff snapped. The graves you buried. The lies you fed the town. The fear you hoarded like gold. His voice cracked, disbelief and panic mingling. The woman stepped forward, shoulders squared, voice sharper. You burned my barn. My family starved. And now you claim moral high ground? A farmer muttered from the crowd. That blaze, it spread to my field too. The sheriff's mouth moved, but no words came. My brother was sick, he stammered finally, voice low. He wasn't sick, the woman said, calm, cutting through the crowd's growing tension. The sheriff froze. His chest rose and fell unevenly. Digging, someone whispered. Yes. Digging graves, she said, voice steady. Graves with no markers. Women vanished long ago. A murmur ran through the town like fire racing through dry grass. The sheriff's face paled. That was my father's doing, he whispered, almost to himself. And now it's yours, the woman said. The badge in his hand seemed heavier suddenly, weight of generations pressing down. The cowboy tilted his head. How many graves did you count? The sheriff's hand shook. None, they were hidden, marked by silence. Silence, the woman echoed. You think it protects you? It doesn't. It haunts. It bleeds through the years. And now we see it. The sheriff's jaw clenched. I protected the town, he said, almost pleading. You protected guilt, she replied softly. The crowd leaned in, murmurs climbing. Children clutched skirts, eyes wide. Farmers shifted, boots scuffing dirt. Even the deputies looked uneasy. The rope from the gallows swayed lightly in the breeze, a ghost of threat now meaningless. The sheriff's hand twitched toward his holster, then faltered. I will not be accused, he snapped. You are accused, she said. And you see the proof yourself. The north well, the graves, the fires you covered with stories. His breath came fast. Stories, lies. I did it to protect your legacy, she cut in, voice calm but heavy. To hide blood. He glanced at the badge in his hand. Ash from old fires clung to it like dust. The crowd watched him, spellbound. Order must exist, he muttered, almost to himself. The cowboy leaned slightly, close enough that his shadow fell over the sheriff. Order built on fear is fragile. Truth is stronger. Fragile? You don't know what you speak of, the sheriff said, shaking. I built this town. His voice broke. I hanged innocents, she said. I buried names. I kept silence for generations. And now it's rising. The sheriff's hand trembled. The badge fell from his fingers into the dirt. The metallic clang echoed, final, irreparable. The crowd gasped. The woman stepped forward, closer now. Your father's sins ended with him, she said. Yours end today. The cowboy nodded once, eyes never leaving the sheriff. We all see it now, he said. The ashes in your badge, they speak louder than your words ever could. The sheriff fell to his knees, hands hovering over the badge in the dirt but never touching it. His chest rose and fell, a mix of fear, guilt, and disbelief. You think this town will forgive? He whispered, voice broken. Not forgive, the woman said. Remember. Learn. Never let this happen again. The crowd murmured agreement, some voices loud, some hesitant, but all present. Even the farmer who had muttered before spoke now. Names. We want names. The sheriff's eyes widened, realization dawning that control had slipped, never to return. The wind shifted. Dust rolled over boots. The rope swung gently in the morning sun. The woman's hands brushed the platform, steady, unbroken. You've held us in silence for too long, she said. We reclaim it. We reclaim the land, the truth, the memory. And you, she tilted her head at the sheriff. You watch it burn from within. His jaw tightened, no words. The badge lay in the dirt, ashes, and dust clinging. The cowboy stepped back, giving her space. The crowd leaned forward, anticipation and fear mixed in every face. The sheriff's empire of fear was crumbling, piece by piece. The woman's gaze swept the crowd, resting briefly on the sheriff. No rope today, she said softly. No gallows. Just truth. Her words settled over the town, heavier than any hangman's noose. And in that moment, the platform no longer held power. The sheriff's authority, once absolute, was reduced to nothing more than whispered apologies he could not speak. The cowboy tipped his hat, eyes lingering on the woman. "Truth rises," he said quietly. "It always does." The woman nodded, lips tight, eyes forward, ready to face what came next. The town moved almost without speaking, a silent tide toward the north well. Dust swirled in the morning light, kicked up by hesitant boots and shifting skirts. The rope still hung on the gallows behind them, a relic of threatened death now meaningless. The sheriff lagged behind, shoulders tight, face pale. "You're stirring ghosts," he muttered under his breath. The woman's eyes never left the well. "They were never resting," she said softly, almost a whisper. The cowboy lowered a lantern into the yawning darkness. Its light caught bones slick with soil, glinting faintly like forgotten teeth. A deputy gagged, stumbling back. "Animals," the sheriff said, voice sharp and defensive, but no one believed him. The cowboy's hand emerged from the well holding a scrap of fabric. Burned, tattered, heavy with dirt. "Recognize this?" he asked the woman. Her eyes closed briefly. "Mother's," she said. The words hung in the air, heavier than any accusation. Murmurs spread, uneven and tense, through the crowd. "You said she ran off," a ranch wife whispered to the sheriff. His lips twitched. "Unstable," he muttered. "Loud," the woman corrected. Her gaze swept the well, the bones, the crowd. Silence thickened, pressing in. A teenage girl stepped closer. "My aunt too," she whispered. Another voice, older, cracked with emotion. "And mine." The well yawned beneath them, dark and endless, and the wind died as if the world was holding its breath. The sheriff staggered backward. "You're twisting memory," he said, panic creeping into his voice. She looked at him softly, deliberately. "No. We're finding it." The cowboy leaned slightly closer. "How deep?" he asked. The woman shook her head, eyes on the lantern flickering against bones. "Deeper than we know." The crowd pressed in, some leaning over the stone edge, hands clutching skirts, mouths covered. Children cried quietly, afraid of what adults were seeing, of what adults already knew. The sheriff's face had gone pale, his eyes darting to the ground, the well, the gathered bones, and back to the woman. "This isn't justice," he said. It's madness." "Madness," she repeated, voice strong now. "No. It's memory. It's truth. And it's long overdue." She stepped closer, scanning the bones, the scraps of burned fabric, the ground. "Your father hid it," she said. "You carried it. And now the town sees." Her words cut through the morning air. A man muttered, "Names. They need names." The woman nodded. "All of them. We speak them aloud. We remember." The sheriff's hands trembled, hovering near his empty badge. "You can't," he said. "I am the law." "No," she said. "Law is meant to serve truth, not hide it. You've kept it buried too long." The crowd murmured, growing louder. "I followed orders," he yelled. "I followed my father's will." "Orders to kill in silence," she said. "That's not justice. That's fear." The cowboy's hand rested on the hilt of his holster, not drawn, steady. "And fear dies today," he said. The sheriff's knees buckled slightly. He looked around. Faces filled with grief, anger, recognition. The power he wielded so long felt evaporated. Even the rope behind them swayed lightly in the wind, irrelevant now. The woman dropped to her knees at the edge of the well. She placed her hands against the cold stone. "We reclaim what you tried to hide," she said. "We reclaim the names, the memories, the lost women." The crowd leaned closer, quiet now, listening as though the earth itself might speak back. One by one, she read names aloud, each syllable cutting through decades of silence. A mother, a sister, a friend, a widow. Their voices were carried on the wind through the dust, heard by all who had stayed and watched. The sheriff's voice broke. "They were never yours to claim," he shouted. She looked at him, eyes steady, calm. "They never were," she said. "But we honor them now." "And you," she stood, brushing the dirt from her hands. "You watch it happen, powerless." The wind stirred, brushing the crowd's hair, carrying the soft echo of names across the empty fields. The bones in the well seemed to settle, no longer just relics of death but symbols of remembrance. The cowboy stepped forward. "Are you afraid?" he asked her quietly. She shook her head. "No," she said. "I've seen enough to know fear doesn't serve me." He nodded, looking down into the dark well. "Then it's done," he said. "The town will see, and the truth will not be buried again." The sheriff sank to the ground, shoulders slumped. Silence enveloped him, broken only by the soft whisper of wind through grass, through dust, through the well itself. The woman turned, face to the crowd, voice low but clear. "Remember this day," she said. "Remember the well. The bones. The names. And remember that silence has consequences." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some nodding, some trembling. Children clutched their mothers, men stared at the ground, women whispered to each other. The sheriff's jaw flexed once, then he sagged completely, powerless, stripped of authority. The wind shifted again, carrying the names softly across the fields. And the well, dark and infinite, seemed to breathe a quiet approval, as if the buried truths had finally been acknowledged. The sheriff's hands shook as he followed the crowd toward the courthouse. His face was pale, eyes darting from the well behind them to the people around him. "This isn't over," he muttered. The woman glanced back once, her expression steady. "It is, if we choose it to be." She stepped forward, boots crunching on the dirt. The cowboy walked beside her, lantern swinging, light flickering across dust and sweat. The sheriff's voice rose, strained with desperation. "You're stirring rebellion. I will not allow it." A farmer muttered under his breath, "Rebellion? Or truth finally spoken?" The woman didn't answer. She only stopped at the courthouse steps, looking at the boards nailed over the basement doors. "This is where it ends," she said quietly. A young man whispered, "The records, buried beneath?" She nodded. Every lie, every name, every act hidden. The sheriff's hand went to his gun. "Step back," he barked. "I said step back." The cowboy's gaze flicked to the weapon, unflinching. "Put it down," he said softly. "Do you think you'll shoot me?" the sheriff sneered, fingers tightening. "If you pull first," the cowboy replied. The woman stepped in between them, voice firm. "No more guns." The sheriff laughed bitterly, shaking. "You think this town survives without me?" A rancher called from behind her. "Maybe we survive because of you." The sheriff's hands trembled. The courthouse bell rang suddenly, though no one touched it. The sound carried, eerie and hollow. His eyes widened. "My father built this courthouse," he whispered. "And buried truths beneath it." The woman's gaze was soft, relentless. "And now we unbury them." She crouched to pry the boards from the basement doors. The first board came loose with a creak, dust falling like forgotten memories. A deputy gagged, leaning back. "What's in there?" The woman didn't answer, only slid the next board away. Inside, faint light revealed piles of old records, stacked haphazardly, yellowed with age. Names written, crossed out, smudged. Women's names, men's names, victims of silence and fear. The sheriff sank to his knees, trembling. "You can't," his voice cracked. "You'll ruin everything." The woman ran her fingers across the records. "No. We'll reveal everything. So the town remembers. So the silence stops." A farmer muttered, "Names we never knew." The cowboy leaned over, picking up a charred folder. "And evidence you burned," he said. The sheriff flinched, hand covering his face. I protected them," he whispered, voice small, fragile. "No," the woman said, standing, voice rising with authority. "You protected yourself." You protected guilt. Now the town sees. A gust of wind rattled the courthouse boards. Dust swirled. The sheriff's authority evaporated in the morning sun. The woman turned to the crowd, voice quiet but commanding. We speak their names. We honor them. And we do not forget. Murmurs rose, some hesitant, some firm. One by one, townspeople stepped forward, whispering names aloud, voices trembling with grief and relief. The sheriff flinched at each name, pale, powerless, the weight of generations pressing on him. Your legacy ends here, she said. No rope. No gallows. Only truth. The sheriff's hands twitched near his gun, but he didn't raise it. The crowd pressed in, leaning over the open boards, fingers brushing the records. Children watched, silent, understanding more than they should. A ranch wife spoke to the sheriff. We've followed lies for too long. Today we follow truth. His lips trembled. Order, chaos. The woman shook her head. Not chaos. Justice. Different from what you've known. Not violence, not fear. Truth. The cowboy stepped back, eyes fixed on the sheriff. It ends today, he said. The ashes of lies are burned away. The sheriff's shoulders slumped. He had no words, no authority, only the weight of shame and recognition. The woman moved among the townsfolk, touching shoulders, lifting hands, showing them the records. Names, dates, acts of silence. The crowd murmured, cried, some shook their heads, some nodded. She turned to the sheriff, face calm, eyes firm. You don't hang me today. And I won't hang you. Gasps ran through the crowd. He looked up, confused, incredulous. You let me go? We vote, she said. Not me. Not you. The town decides. The sheriff's jaw tightened. He sank to the floor, watching as the woman set the boards aside, revealing the evidence, the history, the bones of lies that had built him. The wind whispered through the courthouse, soft, carrying dust and paper and memory. The gallows rope swayed in the distance, a ghost of what could have been. She walked to the center of the crowd. This ends here, she said. We will honor them. We will speak names. We will remember. And we will decide together, not through fear, but truth. Silence, then a low murmur of agreement. The sheriff's fists clenched, slackened, and finally fell to his sides. He realized his power was gone, stripped by the truth he had tried to bury. The crowd breathed, tension releasing slowly, like wind over dry grass. The woman's gaze met the cowboy's briefly. It's done, he said. She nodded. Not victory, not celebration, but a quiet reclaiming of memory and justice. The sheriff knelt on the dirt, shoulders hunched, hands trembling at his sides. His badge, dulled by ash and dust, lay forgotten near the gallows. Around him, the townsfolk gathered, hesitant at first, but now emboldened by the woman's presence, by the courage that radiated from her stance. What do we do now? A farmer asked quietly. Do we just let it slide? A woman near the back spoke, voice trembling. We've followed lies for decades. How can we keep following fear? The woman looked around, her gaze steady and deliberate. We decide. Together. Not one person. Not one badge. Not one rope. Together. The sheriff's jaw tightened. You'll ruin me, he whispered. His voice cracked, the echo of authority finally gone. I've protected this town. I've upheld law. The woman crouched to his level, eyes calm but unwavering. No. You upheld fear. That's different. We're choosing something else. A young man stepped forward. And if we vote him out? He asked. Murmurs ran through the crowd, uneven and uncertain. If he's guilty of hiding truth and silencing women, should he remain? The woman's gaze flicked briefly to the cowboy. He nodded slightly. The choice is yours, he said. The sheriff's hands clenched, knuckles white. You think the town can judge me? He asked, voice low. They already are, she said softly. And it's not vengeance. It's justice. A teenage girl spoke up, voice barely a whisper. I don't want silence anymore. Not for me. Not for anyone. Another voice joined hers. We deserve names. Truth. The graves, the burned barns, the women who vanished, all of it. The crowd leaned in, murmurs swelling. The sheriff's gaze darted around, the realization dawning that his power had evaporated entirely. The woman stood tall, voice rising. We will decide his fate. Together. No rope. No gallows. Just accountability. A rancher muttered, Do we even trust ourselves? We do, the woman replied. We've seen the evidence. We've felt the lies. We've held fear for too long. Now we speak. The townsfolk shuffled forward, forming a rough circle around the courthouse. The sheriff's eyes widened. This is madness. You can't. I am the law, she cut him off sharply. No. Law without truth is tyranny. Today, we choose justice, not fear. A mother whispered, clutching her child. We've been silent too long. I say he faces exile. Another man nodded. He hides behind legacy, not right. And the children, someone asked. The widows? The woman's eyes softened briefly. They speak now. They have names. They have witnesses. They will no longer be buried. The sheriff's chest rose and fell rapidly. You betray me, he said, voice almost inaudible. We follow truth, she said. Not loyalty to fear. The cowboy stepped closer to the sheriff. Do you understand? He asked quietly. The town is done with lies. Done with silence. Done with hanging the innocent. You've ruled by terror for too long. The sheriff swallowed, throat dry, shaking. And what will you do? The woman's gaze was unwavering. We vote. Not me. Not one person. Not one badge. We decide. The crowd murmured again, voices rising. Some argued briefly, some hesitated, but ultimately, all were listening, waiting for the choice. One by one, townsfolk spoke. Confessions, regrets, admissions long buried. I obeyed orders, muttered a man. I stayed silent, said a widow. I feared the sheriff, whispered a young girl. The woman listened, nodding slightly, letting them speak. Each voice peeled away layers of fear. The sheriff shrank under the weight, realizing his control had been an illusion. You can't, he whispered. We already have, she said. We already have. The vote was quiet, deliberate. Not a mob, not a shout, but a collective breath of decision. Hands raised, murmurs confirming, heads nodding. One by one, the sheriff's authority was stripped by the people he had sought to control. Finally, a woman at the back spoke clearly. He leaves. Exile. No rope. No gallows. The crowd murmured assent. The sheriff's shoulders sagged. He looked at the woman. Why help her? He asked, voice small, fragile. Because you lied, the cowboy said simply. And that one sentence, clean and unflinching, had started the unraveling. The sheriff was led away, head bowed, powerless. The townsfolk lingered around the courthouse, watching, breathing, their tension slowly releasing. The woman remained, hands folded, watching, letting the silence settle. It's done, she said quietly, more to herself than anyone. The cowboy nodded, glancing at her. The town has chosen. You've reclaimed it. She looked at him briefly. Not me. We. A young girl stepped forward. Will the whispers stop? She knelt, voice soft, eyes on the child. Not completely. But they will change. They will remember differently now. Not fear, but truth. Names were spoken aloud again, softly, slowly. Mothers, daughters, widows, women whose voices had been buried by decades of silence. Children listened, learning the cost of fear, the power of memory. The sheriff, outside the circle, could hear it, but could do nothing. Exile was his punishment, and the weight of truth would follow him farther than any rope ever could. The woman stood alone at the edge of the well, lantern swinging lightly. The cowboy approached. "Will you rest now?" he asked. "I don't know how," she said. They watched the town from the hill, shadows stretching across dirt and stone, long and quiet. The wind carried faint echoes of names, of memories, of voices finally heard. The town had chosen. The rope had loosened. Fear had broken. And in the stillness, justice, measured and deliberate, finally stood tall. The well yawned beneath the sun now, less threatening, yet heavy with memory. Dust lingered in the air, thick and sweet with soil and decay. The townsfolk gathered in a loose circle, watching as the woman knelt beside the stone rim, fingers tracing cracks and chips, eyes dark with thought. The cowboy stayed a step behind, lantern lowered, light flickering across his weathered face. "It doesn't end," he said quietly. She didn't look up. "No," she admitted. "It only begins to speak." A farmer whispered, voice low. "What do we see down there? Bones, names, the past?" She nodded, running her hand along the cold stone. "Everything the ground remembers. The truth buried beneath silence. The lies fed to generations." The crowd shifted, unease spreading. Children clutched skirts. One young man leaned over the rim, curiosity warring with fear. "Is it all here?" he asked. "Every secret?" She nodded. "Every one that mattered." The sheriff, exiled now, watched from the far edge of town, pale and trembling. He muttered to himself, all of this, why can't it stay buried?" The woman's gaze swept the well, her voice soft but firm. "Because the ground doesn't forget. And we are here to listen." A widow stepped forward, voice shaking. I thought silence protected me. Protects us." She shook her head, tears in her eyes. "It doesn't. It suffocates. It hides monsters." The woman met her gaze. "We dig monsters up. We name them. We remember." The cowboy leaned closer, his voice low. "Are you afraid?" She shook her head. "No. I'm careful." A child tugged at her skirt. "Will they come back?" she asked. "Who?" The woman's eyes flicked down the well. "The ones who were lost." The child nodded slowly. "I'm scared." "Good," the woman said softly. "Fear teaches you to hold memory carefully. To protect it. To honor it." The townsfolk murmured agreement, some hesitantly, some firm. She leaned over the stone edge, lantern in hand, letting light fall on the shadows in the well. Bones gleamed faintly. A scrap of clothing caught the glow. She drew it up slowly, dirt falling like dust from forgotten lives. "This was a mother," she said softly, voice carrying to the edge of the crowd. "And here, another scrap, smaller, frayed, a child's piece of dress. A child. Taken. Buried." Murmurs rose, some whispering prayers, others shaking their heads. The sheriff turned away, hiding his face. He couldn't bear the naming, couldn't bear the weight of memory he had buried. A teenage girl stepped forward. "We can't leave them here," she said. "We have to, something." The woman looked at her, eyes soft. "We honor them first. We name them. Then we decide what comes next." Another man muttered, "We should bury them properly. Mark the graves. Remember." She nodded. "Yes. That's what the ground keeps, and that's what we carry." The wind shifted through the circle, dust rising, carrying faint echoes of names. The cowboy's hand rested on the lantern, steady, waiting. The woman drew another bone from the well, careful, deliberate. "I didn't know this much," she admitted. "I thought I understood, but the ground, it has more to say than any record, any sheriff, any rope ever did." She set the bone aside gently. The townsfolk leaned closer, whispering to one another, naming what they recognized, connecting fragments, stories, and memories long hidden. The sheriff sank to the ground, knees drawn up, silent. He could not look. The woman's voice cut through the murmur. Listen. The ground remembers better than we ever do. It never lies. A rancher spoke softly. And we? What do we do with memory like this? She lifted her head, eyes dark, unwavering. We carry it. We speak it. We do not bury it again. One by one, the townsfolk approached the well, touching the stones, the dirt, the remains of past silence. They whispered names, stories, even half-remembered truths. The ground seemed to settle, quiet, accepting, as if acknowledging that at last, it was being heard. The sheriff muttered, voice trembling. This destroys me. The woman looked at him, calm, steady. It frees us. His hands shook. Why her? He whispered, voice broken. Why not? She said. She's seen more than anyone. She's carried truth while you buried it. He swallowed, eyes tearing. And the town? She asked. They forgive me? He shook his head slowly. No, she glanced at the crowd. Then they are ready for something better. And so are you, if you choose it. Another widow stepped forward, holding a scrap of paper from the well. My husband, she said, voice tight. The woman nodded. We name him. We remember him. We hold him. Each person who approached the well did the same, naming, touching, honoring. The wind carried their words, dust swirling like whispers. The ground beneath them seemed to breathe, soft and heavy, a witness finally acknowledged. The cowboy stepped closer, lantern held high. Will you ever stop? He asked. Hearing them? She shook her head. No. I will listen. So we do not forget. So the ground's memory does not become our silence again. He nodded, understanding. Then the past lives in you now, he said. She looked down at the well, voice quiet, almost reverent. And in all of us. The sheriff, kneeling at the edge of the circle, finally raised his eyes. They were not accusing, not demanding. They were filled with a dawning understanding of the weight he had carried and the relief the town now felt. He did not speak, could not speak, as names continued to rise, echoing off the stones, across the fields, into the wind. The woman drew herself up, lantern swinging, dust falling from her coat. We will mark these graves, she said. We will name every woman, every child, every story hidden. And we will remember. Not fear, not vengeance, not silence. We will remember. The crowd nodded, some sobbing, some quiet, some firm, all carrying the burden of recognition together. The wind swirled through the well, carrying the echoes of names, the traces of stories, the ghosts of fear long held. The woman stepped back, eyes sweeping the circle of townsfolk. The ground keeps memory, she said. We carry it now. And the sheriff, she glanced briefly at the pale figure kneeling, he will watch, powerless, as we reclaim what was always ours. The cowboy nodded silently, lantern steady. The town exhaled, as one body, as one mind, holding memory for the first time without fear. The sun dipped low behind the ridge, casting long shadows across the town. The well was quiet now, dust settling over the stones, the bones, the names spoken aloud. The townsfolk lingered in small clusters, murmuring softly, faces pale with grief and relief. The sheriff stood at the edge, shoulders slumped, silent. His badge lay forgotten in the dirt, meaningless. The woman walked past him, lantern in hand, gaze steady. We decide what lives and what dies here, she said, voice clear. Not fear. Not revenge. Truth. The cowboy stepped forward. And what of me? He asked, voice low. The woman glanced at him, eyes soft but unwavering. You risked your life to speak it. You bore witness. And now? He shrugged, boots scuffing the dirt. I did what was right. And that's my sentence? She nodded. No reward. No rope. Only accountability. You stay, only if you choose to live among it, not above it. The cowboy looked around at the town, the faces, the ghosts of memory in their eyes. Then I choose, he said finally. I stay. The sheriff's jaw tightened. You let him decide? His voice was cracked, bitter, powerless. Yes, she said. Because he did not take from anyone. He gave us a chance to see clearly. A rancher muttered, and what of the law? What of order? Order, the woman said softly, is built on truth. Not fear. Not lies. Not shadows. Children peeked from behind skirts, watching, understanding that the ropes that once loomed over them meant nothing now. The townsfolk gathered around the courthouse, speaking names one last time. The woman laid scraps of fabric, bones, and yellowed papers on the steps, touching each gently. These belong to memory, she said. Not hiding. Not shame. Not silence. The sheriff flinched, swallowing. You ruin everything, he whispered. No, she said firmly. We restore what you tried to bury. And you watch, powerless. The cowboy stepped beside her. Do you forgive? She asked him quietly. He shook his head. Not yet. Forgiveness isn't mine to give. We remember first. She nodded, understanding. Then remember. For all of us. He glanced at the well, shadows stretching across the stones. It keeps memory, he said. Always. And we carry it, she replied. We speak it. We honor it. And the sheriff, she glanced at the pale man kneeling in the distance, he watches as he always should have. The sheriff looked down at the dirt, face pale. He muttered, and the town, what will it do without me? The woman's voice cut softly but firmly. It will live. It will remember. And it will speak. Not because of you. Not because of fear. But because of truth. His shoulders slumped further. He had no words, no control, no power left. Only the weight of decades of lies pressed against him, now fully exposed. The cowboy tipped his hat toward the woman, eyes steady. It's done, he said. She nodded. It is. The past, the graves, the lies, the fear, all spoken. And now, we decide how to move forward. The townsfolk whispered names again, softly, as if feeding them back to the earth, honoring memory instead of hiding it. Some held hands. Some wept. Some simply nodded, relief washing over them in slow, steady waves. The sheriff finally rose unsteadily, eyes hollow. And me, he asked. His voice was small, stripped of authority. You watch, she said. You learn. You bear witness. That is your sentence. His hands fell at his sides. The cowboy glanced at him. Nothing else? The woman shook her head. Nothing else. No rope. No revenge. Only the truth you buried, now carried by everyone you tried to silence. The sheriff swallowed, nodded, and took a slow step back, letting the weight of the day settle over him. The sun touched the horizon, casting amber light over the town, the well, the courthouse, and the gathered people. Dust swirled in the last rays, carrying whispers of names, stories, and memories that would no longer be hidden. The woman looked at the well one last time. It keeps memory, she said softly. The cowboy nodded, lantern low, shadows falling across the steps. And we carry it, he replied. The townsfolk lingered for a while, quiet, speaking softly, holding memory without fear. The sheriff retreated toward the edge of town, a figure diminished, powerless, forced to carry witness instead of authority. The woman and the cowboy stood together briefly, watching, listening, feeling the weight of justice finally balanced, not by law, not by rope, not by fear, but by truth, spoken aloud and remembered by all. She stepped forward, voice calm but carrying across the silent town. Remember this day, she said. The rope no longer threatens. The badge is ash. The well remembers, and so do we. Justice is not punishment. Justice is remembering. The cowboy lowered his hat, eyes soft. "It's done," he said again. She nodded, finally letting herself exhale. Dust swirled, names whispered on the wind, and the town exhaled with her, lifting the weight of silence that had long pressed down on them. The sun disappeared behind the ridge. Shadows swallowed the courthouse and the well. The townsfolk turned homeward, some lingering briefly, some walking slowly, all carrying memory. The woman stood alone for a moment, lantern light flickering across her face, then glanced at the cowboy. "It is finished," she said. "For now." He nodded. "The ground keeps memory. We carry it." Together, they walked back toward the center of town, leaving the well, the ashes, the badge, and the rope behind. The past would never be silent again.